like 74% of insurance industry is still running off of legacy systems. Because insurance is a people business, there should always be a human in the loop. That's where I feel like technology can really help accelerate back office, and we get to the true meaning of what it means to have a customer experience, which is still human led. There's such a huge opportunity from an agent perspective to adopt these tools and for Insurtechs, for us to serve that agents so that we can make the selling process, their education process, so much better and richer. In this age of AI, we don't need to be chasing building massive teams, but we need to be chasing building the right teams and keeping them motivated, keeping them grounded, keeping them happy so that they're in the vision, they feel empowered.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Insurance Distribution Podcast. I'm here today with Bobbie Shrivastav, co-founder and CEO of SolvRays, based in North Carolina. How are you?
I'm doing very well, Martin. How are you?
I'm excited about this conversation. Thanks a lot for sharing some time to tell a bit about your story, your background, and also about the future of insurance distribution in particular.
No, absolutely. I'm excited to be talking with you about this topic.
Amazing. So let's start right away. Please share a little bit about your background story, your journey, and how you ended up working in insurance.
It's one of my favorite questions because we oftentimes talk, especially if you are working in insurance, it's how did insurance choose you? So insurance chose me 10 years ago when I had my first baby, my only baby, and my maternity benefits was tied to an insurance product. And what I really thought, Martin, was I was going to send an email of the picture of my baby to my HR, and that's it. You can start my process. And she turned around and gave me a form and said, cute baby, you need to fill this out. Spending weeks in confusion, encountering with lots of fax machines, finally got the payment from a disability, or it was a disability policy for maternity benefits. And this is when I really got into the realization that as a new parent, we were faced with like disability paperwork, we were faced with HR documents. Every place we went to as a parent, we had to fill out something because we had a baby, and those systems weren't seamless. So that got us into creating our first company called Docsmore, which we built in 2015 when my daughter was 6 months old. We were working full time. That was our side hustle. I don't know how we got the energy back then, but we found it and we built a company. When you have a child, you go crazy. We went crazy and built a product. And that was the journey into insurance, because our second use case, our second initiative was really innovating on the claims side, and got to learn. And that's how I really got into insurance. And now, I've been a founder in the space. This is my second Insurtech. SolvRays is my second Insurtech company. And that's how insurance chose me. Once you're in insurance, Martin, you just never leave, because there's so many pain points and so many problems that you get exposed to that you can really apply technology and AI to solve that.
Gotcha. So you were on the user side, a little bit frustrated with these multiple forms, and then you decided to start reshaping it a little bit with your first initiative, and now with the second one on the claim side of things. But you had a background in technology, or how did you ended up like saying, hey, let's fix this?
Yeah, I was in tech, and my tech experience was in financial services. So I worked at Aon, I worked at Pepsi, I worked for a division of AIG called United Guarantee. And then before I jumped full into entrepreneurship, I was with a very unique organization called Center for Creative Leadership. And what our mission was, how do you make better leaders across the globe? And I was hired to really take a paper-based process which is this classroom process, and how do you embed technology. So my team was called Paperless Technology that I was leading. So there's been a common theme of how do you streamline, how do you eradicate like paper, and then you get paper and and it's like, okay, I'm going to solve this problem. So
No, excellent. Yeah, usually great startups start out of frustration of your own individual, in this case, as a user, and then you ended up building solutions for the businesses. So let's talk a little bit about SolvRays right now. I mean, what are you currently solving, and what do you see as the great opportunity behind claims and AI, which is kind of the touching point there?
my first Insurtech was on the claim side. What we decided with SolvRays is, since we've innovated in the claim side of the house already with our company, let's go solve other pain points and really use AI and apply AI where it makes sense. Because what we noticed in the claims journey that we were on is some of the issues that were faced in claims were issues that were happening upstream in the insurance value chain. So, how does new business come into the door? How is underlining functioning? How are we doing policy servicing? Are we being proactive or are we being reactive with the data? Why are there so many different systems? As organizations start to consolidate, we see a lot of number of systems. So at the end, when a customer wants to do a claim process, what you see behind the scenes is a claims adjudicator trying to look at different pieces of information to adjudicate the claim. And that's what we solved with my first company. But my second company, SolvRays, we're fixing even before it hits the claim. How do we get to this clean data? Is there ever such thing in an insurance industry of this golden record? And those are the use cases we're chasing, that we are trying to solve, so that full end to end can become seamless. So we're focused more on the back office side of the house, with enterprise workflow, and how do we unfragment these fragmented pieces that we see across the insurance value chain, from doc ingestion, doc generation, from workflow, how work comes in within an insurance back office operations.
And you mentioned that you worked for multiple industries before starting the entrepreneurial journey. As an Insurtech founder, I do find that there are a lot of opportunities in incorporated technology, and in the insurance sector is a little bit later than other sectors in incorporating this technology to become paperless or to streamline processes better. First off, do you agree with this statement? And if yes, why do you think this might be happening?
Honestly, I asked when I first came into InsurTech, Martin, the number one feedback I got from the mentors that were helping us was, don't solve this claims problem. There's no problem. These industries have money. And I didn't listen. I'm glad I didn't listen and decided to build what we built, because that was a good business what we built. But by coming into insurance, what I learned is that there is this huge obsession with following what's been happening in the fintech movement and other industries. But I feel like there's still, like, everybody says, oh, whatever's happening in banking, it will get adopted in property and casualty, which will then get adopted in life and annuity, which will then trickle down to group and long term care. Like, if you go into long term care, they're like 20 years behind. So, as an industry, I really want, as from an innovator perspective, since we've been innovating in the space for so long, is that we need to see what's happening in overall tech and then apply it to insurance. We don't really need to wait for validation from banking in order to come. And I don't know why it was set up. Like, that mindset has been set up that way. I just don't understand that. I really don't understand that, because we as an industry, we are an important industry. We should be leveraging these technologies to improve businesses. But I think, honestly, Martin, like, when I see the leaders that we work with, some of the most progressive ones are ones that want and are really embodying change management at the core. Like, they're bringing people that come in from a fresh perspective. it's sometimes the mindset of carriers with leadership that feels like, well, we've always done this way, or they're getting external pressure from the board to innovate. And then they're like, okay, I got to do this, check the list. I think that kind of mindset has been existing, unfortunately, but I'm seeing that change because the workforce is changing. The statistics that 50% of the insurance industry is set out to retire. So we are starting to get that newer blood. Like, think about ChatGPT when it hit, how quickly insurance was trying to adopt and do POCs. That's amazing compared to the blockchain era back in 2018 when that technology existed, like a few years back in the cloud. Remember when cloud came back in early 2010s, and we're still talking about the cloud back in 2018, 2019? I think we are getting better and adopting at the same time as other industries. That's my hope for the industry. And I see that, especially with new leadership coming in.
That's great. And you just mentioned this new wave of AI and generative AI coming into it. There's certainly great business opportunity. There's probably some hype. Which use cases would you say that you're mostly excited for and that you have seen real results, or that you are aiming to see very good results in the near future when it comes to business applications in the distribution piece of insurance?
Yeah, I think from where I get excited about how we can finally leverage AI to expedite is in integrations, to be honest with you. It's integrating like some of these core systems into other systems, and not just integrations for the sake, like API to API. We're not talking about that. We're talking about true agentic capabilities of how we could take data and even integrate to systems that are legacy without needing that API. To me, that is what faster, we've solved the distribution piece that allows work to come in faster, that's revenue coming in, and then it will speed up other value chain processes. So
Yeah, I find this super interesting field because I think with the digital era, we were always talking about the digital transformation, and it meant like huge budgets to be able to connect a couple of legacy systems or to change from a legacy system to a new one. We really now have the ability to have very intelligent workflows that they can integrate themselves to these legacy systems, and that we do not need to be shifting from one to another based on the newest technology. Of course, we need to maintain them, but I think this is a huge revolution, especially when there are core systems in all carriers that are very powerful but hard to integrate with. So yeah, I agree with that statement.
and insurance, if you think about like what the latest statistics have shown, like 74% of insurance industry is still running off of legacy systems. So especially on the life and annuity side, we see a lot of AS400 still exist. So the key is like, do you need to convert? Yes, but how much does it cost to convert a system? It's about 10 million plus dollars right now, right? $10 million. It takes anywhere from 18 to 24 months on a good day. We can come in from applying AI. Once again, I say the word applying AI to that specific use case of conversion. Our hypothesis is that we can shrink the cost and shrink the timeline to slash it by 50%. That's impact. That's huge impact. So, what is tech debt cost to a carrier because we're in legacy landscape that I have to mitigate because of risk? There is no ROI to do a conversion project. It's all about mitigating risk. I was just talking about this with one of my friends. If we can reduce the timeline, that just frees up resources and capital where they can truly innovate. And that's what's exciting. And those are some of the use cases in conversion that we're exploring on the life and annuity side that we want to expedite. We want to partner with companies that we can expedite the conversion timeframes, in addition to providing carriers the tooling. Because honestly, Martin, customers don't care that you have 10 systems, 20 systems. They don't care if you're going through a conversion process. All they care about is, I put in an application, why isn't this done? And how can we get to this instant issue mode with so much data that exists about me, like why does it still take on average, Limra was talking about 45 days to issue a policy? Why does it take that? Or 50 some days to issue a policy?
And I think this is, of course, a very interesting use case. I just want to bring you down to the customer experience side of things. If you have any expectations there, of course, we are now getting used to interacting with intelligent systems, ChatGPT, Claude, you name it. Would you say that we'd be in the short term interacting with these systems with our policy, with our risk, with our claims? Or would you say that we will be still relying on 2.0 systems or people when interacting with our insurance?
Honestly, it's a very good question. And I would say it depends on how we're going to be facing with some of the compliance and regulation that's going to come down on use of AI. My friend just was talking about this in our podcast the other day. She was running a couple of pilots, and there was a pilot with voice using AI and voice, which has been existing for a long time. It's getting better though. But now the voice is there and with the human, or a voice by telling me as a consumer that I'm talking to AI, which is really better. It feels like I'm talking to a human, or voice with AI that nobody's disclosing, like, is it AI or not? The minute you hear the word AI as a consumer, people are hanging up. They're reverting. So it's not about the tech, it's about we as people, the consumer, and our expectation. And this is why I'm a strong believer of meeting the customer where we're at. There's going to be consumers that will say, I don't care if we talk to a chatbot or not, as long as I get my answers done, or I could self-service. Why shouldn't I be able to do make changes to my policy? Why do I have to submit a form, right? Those are experiences that should exist and will exist even in a more better way. However, because insurance is a people business, there should always be a human in the loop, because at the end of the day, if somebody really truly wants to talk to people, they should. We have to just make it easier for me as a consumer to talk to you versus waiting 45 minutes and being transferred out and getting this unempathetic service. That's where I feel like technology can really help accelerate back office, and we get to the true meaning of what it means to have a customer experience, which is still human led, but they're just performing at a different level because they're not doing admin crap anymore.
Completely. Yeah. Like if the AI tooling gets to the state that I think we both agree it will be getting in the very short term, in a positive experience, we'll be connecting more people to people
Yeah.
instead of like people to back office tasks.
Yeah.
But then might be people that do not want that interaction, and that's fine. They'll be able to access it completely autonomously. But then if the people want to meet people or want to have question answers with a claim or a renewal issue that they had, they might be able to do it with a person that could be having a co-pilot super assistant helping that conversation flow go faster. I think, yeah. Hopefully we get there soon. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to one of my friends yesterday. I had an experience at a typical drive-through, and you know how drive-through is. It's technology behind you're talking and you're
Yeah.
screaming, and then there's a human in between. This experience was all human-led with amazing tech. So I talked to the person, I got to see her smile. Gave me this really superior experience, and it was still fast. Like, that's, to me, it's like where we are going to see the future. And insurance really needs to get on that experience bandwagon. And experience doesn't mean a customer portal. Let's think about the next generation of experience. Don't slap a UI on something and say, hey, I will give a good customer experience, check the box. Experience is so much deeper, so much deeper.
As we're talking about experience, of course, the carriers do have a very important role to play here. And as we were just discussing, what do you think about the role of the agents or even Insurtechs like B2C Insurtechs coming here to improve that experience? Which actors do you think will actually be shaping this to the better?
On the distribution side, what an amazing opportunity for an agent to have like a co-pilot that you're talking about, right? So for us, our solutioning is more on the back office on service to make service better so that people can use the front end tools in a more efficient way. But when I talk to agents, they are that human in the loop component. And for some of these complex products, no matter how much AI you can put to people still want to do business with people, right? Insurance is it's sold, right? Like until we can create, but there's such a huge opportunity from an agent perspective to adopt these tools and for insurtechs for us to serve that agents so that we can make the selling process, their education process so much better and richer. I'll tell you, Martin, like when we look at the long-term care side of the house, long-term care insurance is very difficult to sell. They're hybrid products, they're very complex. So I was looking at some of the data, and the amount of policies that are sold by agent, they're not selling as much. If they have other products to sell, they're selling this because it's just so complex to sell. That's where I think the innovation needs to be, is how do we make it easier for agents to learn about it and so that they can sell, because these products and services are so important for us as consumers. But how do you educate and how do you allow even the agents to get access and make it easier for me to buy?
Gotcha. And with this ability of getting systems integrated easier, well, as you're working right now, do you see also a good opportunity in the embedded insurance space, like being carriers being able to interact with companies that not necessarily have been historically selling insurance to now be able to do it easier than it was before?
Oh my God. It's like the purchasing process, right? Like, how many times do you go through a website and after you've made the purchase, they educate you on a small piece of activity for an add on? How do you have a leadership coach that's embedded in your whole life? So think about these protection solutions, in a way, it's all protection embedded in your life so that it knows that you're about to do an activity and it triggers and it educates you, but there's a triggering moment. That's the connective fabric that is going to be pretty interesting, because as the world is getting more connected, there's a lot of opportunity to embed these solutions that can make your life much more richer and you're protected.
Awesome. So we discussed a lot of different topics in this 25 minutes episode, but I wanted to end up getting a little bit away from the future of insurance and more around your entrepreneurial experience. You had two projects that you have been building in the insurance industry, at least. I'm an entrepreneur myself in the insurance space too. So would love to, if you had to highlight which were your key learnings from the second one that you would be able to share with me as an entrepreneur, which would they be, and provide some context?
The first one is being customer obsessed. You have to be solving the pain point for your customers and fall in love with your customers, right? As entrepreneurs, sometimes when you get to a certain level of growth, you may not have the pulse. There was a saying, hands in, but nose out, meaning I don't have to be so deep in, but I should have a pulse of what's going on. It may be a reverse, but you see what I'm talking about. And that grounds you to your why as an entrepreneur. It's the problem you're solving, the customers you're serving, whoever your customer is. You cannot forget your why. You cannot forget who you're doing this work with. And the more you're grounded, the better you're committed to this whole organization as you grow and scale. You'll never forget that. but you can't let the pulse out. You cannot be so far removed and say, I'm delegating everything. There's some things that you, as a leader, as an entrepreneur, you cannot delegate your purpose. So be customer obsessed is the biggest one that's carried with me from my first, all my ventures is being obsessed with the customer and making sure we're solving real problems. And then the second one is you're not going to do this journey alone. You've got to have good people. And good people doesn't mean, just show up here and there, have like one meeting and say, yeah, look at my culture, look how amazing it is. It's really investing in your people and getting to know your people. In this age of AI, we don't need to be chasing building massive teams, but we need to be chasing building the right teams and keeping them motivated, keeping them grounded, keeping them happy so that they're in the vision, they feel empowered. In our company, the new things that we're incorporating is we are making sure that every single person that we bring on feels like they have a piece of our company. So it's not, the employee stock option isn't just for the select few leaders, it's for everyone. And this, we strongly believe in that. My co-founder and I are pretty sticklers of, we want to make sure that as we grow and scale, our people are growing and scaling with us. So being not only customer obsessed, you're team obsessed is another piece. And then the third piece I would say is don't chase venture, chase customers. Easier said, because in order to grow a company, you have to have funding. But the minute you flip it and you're getting enamored by the amount you've raised versus the number of customers you serve, you're in it for the wrong reason. So allowing you to chase customers over chasing revenue versus chasing venture is just going to make you a good business.
Amazing. Yeah, I take you three, and then also one that you mentioned throughout the conversation that was listen to your mentors, but also follow your instinct and follow your convention.
I wouldn't be in insurance if I didn't listen. Yeah, there are so many mentors. They all come from a place of offering good advice and feedback, but not all advice is good.
Absolutely. Bobbie, it was great talking to you. It was great learning about your journey, about your vision of the future of insurance, about how great technology that you're building to streamline the operations, the back office of such an important industry as insurance, to also help us people that are shipping a bit the distribution piece get it easier, I think. So yeah, it was a super fun talk and hope you enjoyed it too.
Oh, awesome. Thank you, Martin. Thank you for the opportunity.
Until the next time. Thanks.